Chair recognizes Councilwoman Quiñones-Sánchez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today at 3 o'clock, Councilman Squilla and I will be joining the mayor at the Emergency Response Center at 4th and Spring Garden. This is after his declaration last week of a health crisis in the city, in particular Kensington, as it relates to this opioid addiction. And I want to thank the administration for heeding our call. I know Councilman Squilla and I, Councilman Dom, who's been incredibly supportive. The conditions of Kensington, we are in the eyes of the country. Just this week, the New York Times declared Kensington the Walmart of heroin, and it is a narrative that will take us years and years to get away from. But the conditions there are very similar, and I would need to remind people of the 80s in my own neighborhood of Hunting Park when we had the drug epidemic. And at that particular time, we had a public safety strategy of containment, and we have wrested our way through that. And the trauma related to what happened post all of that situation was never dealt with. In Kensington, we have to do things differently. And I have been one of the folks, the most progressive folks around needle exchange, the placement of clinics, methadone clinics and others. In fact, some of my constituents in Fishtown call me the methadone queen for being responsible in how we address this plight across the city. But in Kensington, poor people have the right to live in safe and a clean community. And that's not what we have. We have an occupation of 700 people in addiction, many who are not from the city, who have created a crisis situation where children are walking through needles, through open drug utilization, through prostitution and open sex. This declaration is a step in the right direction. But this council and this administration has to be more intentional in how we provide a quality of life for the folks in Kensington and help people through what is a lifetime journey of recovery as they deal with their addiction. One thing is not more important than the other. It is both of those things that must happen. And I continue to work and believe that our behavioral health system, I know many of you attended a briefing last week from CBH. I can tell you that we still have a lot of work to do to meet people where they are around treatment and services. At the same time, we have to be responsible and ensure that we are taking care of Philadelphians and working with the counties and helping folks go back home. We can't have a plan where we are going to say that we have housing for the 700 people in addiction there. And we can't tell residents in that community that we're going to be able to provide that housing. And until that happens, we are not willing, we don't have the political will to break down these encampments. You've heard me talk about this often. I've been incredibly frustrated at our inability and unwillingness to disrupt lawlessness in the defense of the young people that we are traumatizing every single day. I'll give you an example. Conwell is a special ed mid-school, high academic achieving school in the midst of this. Their enrollment decreased by almost 50% this year because parents, once their kids were selected and visited Conwell, as much as the academic programming was one that they wanted for their children, they were unwilling to put their children in harm's way. And we're working with the school district because the school district has to come up with a busing alternative to get the 380 kids that we still have at the school to school. And we have to figure out how we get the children who live there, who walk to that school, how do we get them to the school safely? And that's a difficult task. And so I remind folks that, some folks have said I'm empathetic. I'm not. I have buried cousins due to addiction. I have an uncle who is in addiction that the entire family is working around. So when people give me numbers, I give them names. And so I am not being cold when I ask that Last Stop be closed because they have people in addiction sleeping in crates and don't have humane conditions for people to go to the bathroom and some basic needs. Now, folks will say, well, it's better than being in the street. That may be true, but it is unacceptable to get the folks in that community to continue to tolerate this stuff. I helped open 2 respite centers in Kensington. I have now called for them to be shut down in the next 6 months because we have been unable to guarantee the public safety of the folks in Kensington. And as a result of that, we're killing the Kensington commercial corridor. This is not an either or, but we have to give long-term residents and those folks who live in Kensington, we have to win back their confidence that we can keep them safe. We cannot let folks in addiction who have no control of their lives occupy a neighborhood and there be no or else strategy. And so today I will stand with the mayor because I got elected to attempt to work through all of these problems. But I can tell you that I'm still not convinced that we are willing to be disruptive and do what is necessary for the residents of Kensington. As all these safe injection sites happen, and I had the pleasure of being on WURD debating Governor Rendell, who's been a great supporter of mine, on their quest for a safe injection site. I'm not the person who has said no to looking at harm reduction. But until you can convince me, and I've said this over, if you can't convince me, you're not convincing 16 other members of council, right? That a safe injection site strategy that is not part of a real reform continuum of care is going to be the answer. Tomorrow I will go to New York and I will sit with the Health Commissioner of New York, who is in the process of setting up 6 sites, not Staten Island, won't say why, right? We all know why. 6 sites, and with the director of Vancouver, who has 26 sites, and has now said the safe injection sites are not enough because their overdoses are going up. We are now going to give away the drug. And so he's going to sit in a panel with me tomorrow to talk about how Canada, who has universal health care, minimum income, and affordable housing, how they now, in order to deal with their overdoses, are going to give away heroin because fentanyl has gotten to Canada. So folks, I appreciate Councilwoman Bass and her committee. We've had many hours of discussion about this. We will now be hosting another session. We have postponed what was originally scheduled for October 23rd to give the mayor and his team and this new declaration an opportunity to work. The mayor has said we're going to do this for 3 months, and if things don't work, we're going to change it up. This is not a Kensington problem. This is a citywide problem. This is a southeastern Pennsylvania problem. And it is a crisis because white men between 22 and 50 are dying, although it is important to note that there's a growing number of Latino and African Americans. We're probably going to lose more to opioid overdoses than we will to shootings this year. So it is a crisis across the board. But how we address this issue, it is about race and economics. And my community in Hunting Park, who suffered the trauma, I am a child product. The reason I got involved in community development in Hunting Park was because of the drug epidemic in Hunting Park at 8th and Butler. In fact, my first march was when Jesse Jackson came into the city to talk about that. And I was about 15 years old. So I have lived this. And I am outraged that folks on the Twitter war, the foundations, and folks from the outside who are coming to tell me that I'm insensitive. I'm not that one. You are not going to come into the 7th Councilmatic District and tell me that I have not lived this every single day. And so, again, I want to acknowledge the administration and what we're going to do today at 3 o'clock. I want to ask my council colleagues to be more engaged in this discussion because, remember, Vancouver has 26 sites. How many are you taking, Councilman Johnson? 20. Exactly. So let us be clear that if there's anything that I've demonstrated in this council floor is that I know how to legislate for the 7th and in the best interest of the entire city. And so while I may be at the forefront of this with Councilman Squilla, this is impacting all of us, and the strategy has to be a citywide strategy, and everybody has to play a part of this. So don't parachute in to tell me what you think I should do, because if you can't put it on your corner, don't come and tell anybody in my neighborhood that we're going to put it on theirs. Thank you very much, Council President.
Thank you.